everyone, this is Georgia with Georgia's Crafty Creations, and today what we're going to be doing is making a quilt inspired card using one of the built-in quilt patterns on the Scan and Cut 2. Now here is a quilt card I made the other day, and this is not the card we're going to make today, but I thought I'd show you a sample of what a quilt card looks like. The card we're going to be making today will be a 5x7 card. So the supplies you will need is a card base 5x7, which is a piece of paper 7x10 scored at 5 and then folded in half. You will also need a square, a 4 7/8 inch square, which mine today is going to be pink. You will need a rectangle also out of the pink or whatever your color you choose for the square, measuring 4 7/8 inches by 1 7/8 inches. And then you'll need one of your pattern papers, which I used a lighter colored one today, for 4 3/4 inch by 1 3/4 inch. That's what we're going to do our sentiment. I'm doing this card a little bit differently today. So when you come up to Brother, your Scan and Cut, this is the home page you come to when you first turn it on. You want to hit your home button and hit OK, which will bring you up to this screen. Now this today we want to choose the pattern. And right here is where all your built-in quilt patterns are. Now when you go here, you have 5 different selections, but under each selection you have different pages of quilt patterns. There's quite a few in here. Now on the Scan and Cut 2, the version I have does not have as many built-in quilt patterns, but for cards it's good for me. So today the pattern I'm going to choose will be in this category. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to choose this B024. Now one tip I will give you is whatever pattern you choose, write that pattern down, because when you go to put your card together, you will want to know what pattern you use to look at to be able to put it together. Now my card is going to be a 5x7. My base that I'm going to put under the actual quilt is 4 7/8. So I want my quilt square to be 4 3/4 inches. So what I'm going to do here, you can either do it at the height or the width, is I'm going to take this down to 4.75 inches. Because that's the size I want my quilt square. And then you hit OK. Now it gives you all your pieces here, and you can see I have 3 different colors for mine. Now a tip from the paper that I use, today I'm using a Fun Stamper's Journey pad, but I use the 6x6 paper pads for the quilt squares because number one, it's the perfect size to put onto your mat. You can put all 3 colors on at once. Also, if you use one paper pad, your papers are contrasting, so you can pick 3 pages from the same paper pad and they will all match together. Even though they're different prints, they're in the same color family and color combinations, and they'll go well together. So what I'm going to do, you have to pick each piece individually to add to your mat. So I'm going to start off with A. And this is the lighter color, and you see there's 2 triangles you're going to get. And I'm going to hit OK. And then here you can see your triangle has 2 shapes around it. That's because it's built in to give you your seam allowance. But with a card, you do not need the seam allowance. If you leave the seam allowance on, it's going to come out bigger than what you had picked. So this square right here is where your seam allowance is. So if you click that once, it takes that second square around. So that's, or triangle, that is what you want. So after you get it where you want, you click Set. And you see, it shows your whole mat. And it's, what I do is I'll put a 6-inch piece of paper here, 6-inch square, one here, and then one here. So when you're putting your shapes on, you want to make sure you get the same colors in the quadrant you want for it. So after you get your first shape, you will go up and click Add, and you go to your second one. And this is the lighter color again. You click OK. You want to click off your seam allowance, hit Set, and you can see it's in the same area. So I'm going to hit Add again. This time we're coming to the darker color, which the pattern I've chosen for this, you click OK, click off your seam allowance, Set, and you see this one is over in this area. I'm going to move it over here so that it's in the same area of the darker color. And you just continue doing this. You click your seam allowance till you get all, and see that went in the square I wanted. One went over here, so we're going to move it over. And this one went there, so we're going to move that one over. And then we're going to click add again. And click our, and this is the last one in my darker color. Click the seam allowance. Set. And it brought my square over here. We're going to bring it over here. That way you can cut all your pieces together and you can have them in the color you want. So we're going to do it for the last color. Click OK. I'm going to go back here for just a minute. We're going to click this one. You'll see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 triangles. And I'll show you why you want to know that in a minute. Click OK. Click your seam allowance. Click Set. Now you see what it did? It brought your 9 triangles up into here. So you're going to take each one of your triangles and move it down into this lower quadrant, because that's where I have my third color at. If you don't know how many triangles you had, then you won't know how many to move down here. And I need one more. I'm trying to figure out where they moved it to. Must be those two right there. And then we're going to click add again. We're going to go to our last triangle, and there's 3 of those. So we're going to hit OK, seam allowance, set, and they brought those 3 up there also. So we're going to have to move these over a little bit to be able to get them all in. For some reason it's not wanting to move for me, but we'll get it. So we're going to grab these 3 and move them down. We're going to move this one down, and bring our last one. Now, once you have all of your pieces on here, before you go any further, you're going to want to scan your paper. So I'm going to readjust my camera and come back and we'll do the scanning in just a moment. Okay, I've got my mat all loaded and ready to go, but I wanted to stay focused on the screen just for a few minutes longer. Once you get your mat loaded in, and I have a different color paper in each quadrant, you want to hit your scan button and hit start, and it's going to scan your paper in. Now once your paper is scanned in and it comes back out, you're going to want to look close at your screen and make sure that all your shapes are inside the paper. Sometimes these right here at the top, for some reason, go off the paper, and I don't want it off the paper, so I'm going to move it down just a little bit. Got one more to move down in here. But you just have to be careful to make sure you don't overlap your shapes when you do this. But when you hit OK, you can see your shapes pretty well, and you can see if you overlapped. So we're going to go ahead and cut this out, readjust the camera, and then we'll show you how to put your quilt card together. Okay, I'm back. I have all my pieces cut. I have my square, which is 4 7/8 inch. And what I like to do with the square to make it easier to piece your quilt, so I just have my small scoreboard, and I'll just take it and fold it over and kind of give it a little crease there more toward the middle, and then do it again the other direction and crease it. This will help when you start putting your quilt together. So I have my base. I do have my picture up on my Brother Scan and Cut 2 so I can see and refer to it. And I usually start in my center and work my ways out, which the center piece is the big square. I'm not going to glue it yet, so I can show you the importance of these score marks. There is your first piece. Since this one is diagonal, you want to get it lined up to where you have a point at each one of your fold marks, crease marks. And that way it will help to get your pattern going right. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm using tacky glue on this, so I have a minute to get it adjusted if I need to. I'm going to take the first piece, I'm going to go ahead and start lining up with those points. It needs to be shifted just a hair more over. Now another option you could do is do it on a bigger square, get your quilt all lined up, and then trim around the edges. So there we have our first piece in. Now the next color that's going to go right around your square are these little white triangles. And once again, you just kind of get it lined up. I'm going to go ahead and start getting this put together. Another thing you can do, you can always put stick it on the back of your paper before you cut it. And the other thing I like to do, I keep a paper towel so I can wipe the glue as I go, just to get it off my pieces. But this, if you have someone who likes sewing or you just want to do a different kind of card, this is neat. And being that they have the quilt patterns built in, it just comes together really nice. You just want to make sure and get these lined up really good. And make sure you do the right pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and get this glued together, and I'll be back to show you what the next step is. Okay, so there is your completed quilt square. Now there are two different things you can do at this point. One is you could take a contrasting pen and go around to make stitch marks like quilting on your card. Or what I like to do is my aunt has a quilting machine and she can do all sorts of patterns with her quilting. So I like to take and pick an embossing folder. And for this one today, we're just going to use, it's kind of like a wavy pattern, but I thought it would make nice stitch lines. And this one is from We Are Memory Keepers. So I'm going to grab my Evolution. Set that down. We're going to slip the quilt square into the embossing folder. And if you want to line it up so your lines are straight, you can do that, or you can have them haphazard, whichever way you like. And I'm going to run that through my Evolution to emboss it. There we go. That should get what I want. I'm going to check it and make sure that it embossed for me before I put that down. And it did. I'm happy with that. So we're going to take that out and move this aside. Now I'm going to use a Versacolor Old Rose ink pad, and what I like to do is just, I'm going to check the color. I don't want to do it real heavy because I don't want to take away from the pattern. So I'm just kind of go across it, kind of highlight some of the embossing so it looks like decorative stitching patterns across it. Actually, I kind of like how that one turned out. It's a little bit different than I've done before because it's more of a little solid pattern, but it just gives you a nice texture to your quilt. So now let's go ahead and get the card put together. So let me grab my card base. I'm going to keep my ink because I'm going to need that in a minute. And I want my quilt to stand out, so for this one, I'm going to put foam tape on the back. Just measure a couple pieces, because I'd like it to stand out from the card rather than just be flat down. The thing about the quilt patterns is you can make some really interesting cards with it, which I kind of like. So we're going to go ahead and take this off. And I'm going to put this on the upper part of my card. Going to kind of look, see which way I like it the best. I think I like it right like that. So we're going to come up to the top of the card. And I didn't give it very much to put a border around the pink. So we're going to go this way with it. There we go. So I've got my quilt card on there now, my quilt. Now I've already made a sentiment. I took the pink and made a base, and then I took one of the papers, and this is going to be a birthday. And this, I'm going to do it flat to the card because I really want to keep the quilt the focal point up there. So I'm going to just take a little bit of tacky glue and put this on. And I'll show you why I put the sentiment to the left. Is I thought it would be neat to make a little piece of material here. So what I did is I just took a small piece of brown cardstock, or you could use cardboard, and I cut a strip of my main paper, and I'm going to take that and just wrap it around. And actually I'm going to glue that first part with some tacky tape, or tacky glue, to glue it down. Hold it for a second. And then I'm going to wrap it so it looks like a little bolt of fabric. And on that last one I'm going to put some tacky glue. And I cut my bolt piece just a hair long, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And once that sets, I'm going to take some tacky glue and put on there. And we're just going to add our little bolt of material right there. So, and then you can add other things. I had a tiny little pair of scissors, but I seem to have dropped them. But you can add other embellishment. You can add buttons or whatever you like sewing. If you have someone who likes quilting, this would be a great card. So just play around with the different quilt patterns and show us what you come up with. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe below. Also, you can join our Facebook group. It's George's Crafty Creations. So you guys, I hope this helps you out. Enjoy it. Have fun with the different patterns and have a great day. Bye.